The night my mom threw my suitcase onto the porch, she didn't even look me in the eyes. She just pointed at the door like I was a stray dog. She finally got tired of feeding. And while I stood there with my college acceptance letter in one hand, she said, "If you can sue your own family, you can sleep somewhere else." She slammed the deadbolt. 3 months later, the whole town found out what she'd done. My golden sister's business collapsed in handcuffs, and my mom called me crying like I was her last hope. I was 18. I had straight A's. I had one dream, college. And my grandpa left me a fund so I could actually get there. My parents treated that fund like it was a tip jar. I grew up as the other daughter, not the first daughter, not the exciting daughter, not the one my mom posted about like she invented motherhood. My sister was the star, always. She didn't have to be cruel. She didn't have to shove me downstairs or steal my lunch money. She was smarter than that. She smiled. She asked sweet. And she watched my parents fold like cheap paper every single time. I learned early that the rules changed depending on whose name was in the sentence. If my sister broke a glass, it was an accident. If I broke a glass, it was careless, ungrateful, always making problems. If my sister wanted a new phone, they found a way. If I needed new shoes, my mom would hold up my sister's old pair like it was a gift from God. Look, they're barely worn. You're lucky. Lucky, that word followed me around like a bad smell. One Christmas when I was maybe 10, I asked for a little Lego set. Not a big one, not a $1,000 castle, just the kind my classmates brought to school and bragged about. My mom didn't even pretend to think. She laughed and said, "Why would we buy that when your sister already has toys?" And my dad nodded like she'd explained math. Then the next day, my sister unwrapped a brand new gaming console. My mom clapped, my dad filmed it, and I stood there holding a sweater that still smelled like my sister's perfume. It was mine now because my sister said it didn't fit her vibe. That was my childhood. Hand-me-downs, leftovers, being told my feelings were dramatic, while my sister's moods controlled the entire house. Dinner was always her choice. Music in the car was always her playlist. Vacations happened when she wanted them, and nowhere I wanted to go existed on the map. I tried fighting back once. I was 13. I had finally hit that age where your mouth starts working faster than your fear. My mom cooked this heavy, spicy dish my sister loved. I hated it. It made my stomach hurt. I asked quietly if we could do something else. My mom's face changed. Not anger at first, more like offense, like I'd insulted her religion. She said, "Your sister likes it." I said, "I don't." And my dad did that thing where he stared at his plate like it was suddenly the most interesting thing on earth. I pushed the plate away. That's all. Just pushed it away. My mom stood up so fast her chair screeched. She grabbed my wrist and yanked me out of the dining room. No yelling, no scene, just pure control. She shoved me into my room and shut the door. Then she didn't feed me until I apologized. I remember laying in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to my sister laughing with the TV on. My stomach growled so loud it embarrassed me in my own room. When I finally came out, shaky and hungry, my mom leaned against the counter and said, "Now tell your sister you're sorry for being difficult." And I did it. Because hunger makes you small. If my life had stayed like that, maybe I would have broken. Maybe I would have become the quiet daughter who disappears. But then my grandpa stepped in. He wasn't perfect. He wasn't one of those magical movie grandpas who always had cookies and wisdom. He was blunt. He was rough around the edges. But he saw things. And he saw me. When I was in middle school, he started inviting me to his place for the summer. He lived on a small farm a few towns over. Chickens, old tractors, and the kind of quiet that lets your brain breathe again. The first summer I went, I remember sitting on his porch and realizing nobody was watching me. Nobody was waiting for me to mess up. Nobody was counting my mistakes like trophies. My grandpa didn't do favorites. He did fairness. And because my parents never gave me that, it felt like love. He'd take me into town and let me pick out a few things. A new pair of sneakers. A book I actually wanted. Sometimes a little game. Nothing crazy. But to me, it felt like oxygen. My mom hated it. She didn't say it out loud, but I could feel it whenever I came home with a new backpack or a new hoodie. Her eyes would tighten. Her smile would look painted on, like I was cheating. Like love was a resource I wasn't allowed to have. By the time I started high school, my grandpa made the offer that changed everything. He said, "Stay with me during the school year, help out, focus." And my parents agreed way too fast. They didn't even pretend to miss me. My mom said, "It's probably better for you." My dad said, "Less stress for everyone." And my sister smirked like she'd just won a prize. So I moved in with my grandpa. Freshman year, I woke up at 5 to help feed chickens and clean stalls. I studied at the kitchen table while he drank coffee and listened to the radio. It was work, but it was honest work. And nobody punished me for existing. For the first time, I felt like I had a future that didn't involve begging. Then my grandpa got sick. It happened fast. One week he was joking about my terrible taste in music. The next week he was sitting in a chair with a blanket over his knees, breathing like every inhale cost him something. He called the family to his house. Uncles, aunt, my parent, my sister, all of them suddenly showed up like they'd always cared. I sat in the corner, quiet, watching. He had a lawyer there. Real suit, real briefcase, real face that didn't blink. And my grandpa did what my parents never did. He put everything on the table. He left parts of the farm to my uncles. He left some cash to my dad. And he left one very specific thing to me. $75,000. For college, in writing, out loud, with witnesses. No confusion. He looked right at me and said, "Promise me you'll finish school. Don't let anyone talk you out of it." My throat closed up, but I nodded. I promised. My mom made a sound under her breath. A little scoff, like college was a joke for someone like me. My sister didn't even hide it. She stared at the lawyer's papers like she was already planning how to cut my name out. My grandpa died right before my senior year. I still remember the funeral like a blurry photograph. People crying, people hugging me like they cared. My mom acting devastated in front of everyone, like she wasn't counting down the minutes until she could regain control of me. And because I was still under 18, I had to go back to my parents' house. Walking back into that home felt like stepping into a cage that had been waiting for me. Same walls, same rules, same energy. My sister was there too, because by then she had burned through her own life and come crawling back. She was 24, divorced, and had a toddler my mom treated like a second chance at motherhood. My sister would disappear for hours. My mom would baby the kid, and my dad would sit in the garage pretending he didn't see anything. The night I moved back, my mom didn't say, "Welcome home." She said, "Don't start problems." It was like my whole personality was classified classified as a threat. Graduation came closer. College deadlines came closer. And that fund, the one my grandpa promised, started feeling like the only rope I had left. So I asked. I didn't demand. I didn't scream. I asked, hey, can we talk about grandpa's money for college? I need to pay deposits. My mom smiled too fast. My dad suddenly became fascinated by the TV. My sister said, relax, like she was talking to a toddler. I asked again a week later. Same reaction. Weird faces. Silent. A topic change. My stomach started doing this cold, sinking thing every time I brought it up. Because deep down, I already knew. I just didn't want to believe they'd go that far. Finally, I cornered my dad when my mom was out. I said, where is it? He rubbed his forehead like I was asking him to solve world hunger. And he said, we used it. I felt my chest tighten. Used it on what? He didn't answer. He just stared at the floor. Then my mom walked in, and like always, she took over. She said, casual as a grocery list. We gave it to your sister. I blinked. My brain took a second to catch up. You gave my college fund to her? My mom shrugged. She needed it more. That was it. That was her logic. My entire future traded away in one sentence. I started shaking. Not crying, shaking. That money was for college. My voice sounded too calm, like it belonged to someone else. Grandpa said it. The lawyer said it. You all heard it. My mom sighed, annoyed. Don't be dramatic. You can wait a year. You're still young. I stared at her. Young. I was the same age as every kid walking into college that fall. I wasn't too young. I was just inconvenient. I said, then why can't she wait a year? I nodded toward my sister. She's 24. She can work. She can wait. My sister rolled her eyes like I'd insulted her crown. She said, it's not that simple. It was that simple. They just didn't care. My dad finally spoke, soft and weak. We'll pay you back. Just give us time. Time. The thing you can never get back. The thing they were stealing from me like it was nothing. I said no. I said I was applying now. I said I needed my money now. And that's when the masks dropped. My mom's voice turned sharp. She said, you're selfish. My sister said, you're jealous. My dad said, you're making this harder than it needs to be. It wasn't hard. It was theft. The next few weeks were war. Not screaming war. Cold war. The kind where every conversation turns into a trap. My mom started keeping receipts on the fridge, like she was building a case. My sister started calling relatives, spinning her story. And I started realizing something terrifying. They weren't planning to pay me back. They were planning to wait me out, make me give up, make me smaller again. One day my cousin texted me, hey, why are you trying to take money from your sister? I stared at my phone like it had grown teeth. Apparently, my sister had been telling everyone I was trying to steal her business money, like I was some cartoon villain trying to sabotage her dream. I walked into the kitchen and said, so that's what you're doing? My sister didn't even deny it. She smirked and said, people deserve to know the truth. The truth. Sure. I turned to my mom. I said, if you don't give me my money, I'm telling everyone you went against Grandpa's will. My mom's eyes went dark. Her mouth tightened, and she said, you want to play that game? Then she grabbed a notebook from a drawer, like she'd been waiting for this moment. She flipped it open and started scribbling. Hard, fast. She wrote down numbers like she was casting a spell. Rent, food, school supplies, doctor visits, Christmas clothes. She shoved the notebook at me and said, you owe us $200,000 for raising you. She smiled like she'd just checkmated me. I stared at the page. It looked insane, like she'd charged me for breathing her air. I said, are you serious right now? My mom leaned in and whispered, if you want to be grown, then be grown. Then she raised her voice. Starting today, you pay rent. You buy your own food. You do your own laundry. She looked at my sister and said, unlike some people, she appreciates what we do. My sister gave this little fake sympathy face. Maybe you should just chill, she said. It's not that deep. It was my life. It was that deep. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my bed staring at the ceiling, my grandpa's words looping in my head. Promise me you'll finish school. I realized my parents didn't see me as their daughter. They saw me as a problem they could manage. A line item. A spare part. And if I stayed, I would lose. Not because I wasn't right, but because they would grind me down until I was too tired to fight. So I did the first adult thing I'd ever done. I left. I packed a bag with the basics. I walked out without asking permission, and I took the bus to my grandpa's farm. My uncle lived there now. He opened the door, saw my face, and didn't ask questions right away. He just stepped aside. I asked for my grandpa's old notebook, the one he used to write everything in: bills, farm schedules, names, notes. I knew he kept numbers like a weapon. My uncle handed it to me. I flipped through it with shaking fingers, and then I found it, a page with the lawyer's name and number, written in my grandpa's blocky handwriting, underlined twice. I called. My voice cracked when I explained everything. The favoritism, the fund, the missing money, my mom's fake math. The lawyer didn't sound surprised. He sounded tired, like he'd seen this movie 100 times. He said, that money was designated for you. He paused. Your father was given control of it as executor, but he can't redirect it for personal reasons. He let that sit. If they refuse, we can take legal action. I swallowed. I said, I don't have money for court. He said, we'll start with a formal notice. Sometimes that's enough. Then he added, your grandfather was very clear about his intent. His voice sharpened. I don't like when people ignore a dead man's wishes. A week later, the letter went out. I wasn't home when it arrived because I'd already set my next move. I knew my mom. I knew she wouldn't react calmly. She would react like a dictator losing control. So I called my best friend and asked if I could crash on her couch. I picked up shifts at a cafe near her place. The pay was garbage, but I got free leftovers at closing. And I stored my important stuff in her closet like I was hiding evidence. Then I went back to my parents' house one last time, not to beg, just to grab the things I couldn't replace. My childhood photos, my transcripts, the small box of stuff my grandpa gave me, his old pocket knife, a note he wrote on my last birthday. I was stuffing it into my bag when I heard the front door slam. My mom's voice hit the hallway like a whip. What is this? I froze. She stormed into my room holding the lawyer's notice like it was a dirty rag. My dad was behind her, pale and sweating. My sister was smirking already, like she'd been waiting for blood. My mom held the paper up and shook it. You called a lawyer on us? She said it loud, like she wanted the neighbors to hear. I took a breath. I said, you stole my college fund. My mom's eyes flashed. She grabbed my suitcase and yanked it open. Then she started throwing my clothes into it with violent, sloppy movements. Not folding, not packing, throwing. Each item hit the suitcase like punctuation. Then she grabbed my box from the shelf, the one with my grandpa's note, and for a second, second, my heart stopped. She held it over the suitcase. Her fingers tightened. She looked at me like she wanted me to flinch. Slow motion. The cardboard creaked. The lid bent. The little items inside shifted and clinked. Then she dumped it. Everything spilled. The pocket knife hit the floor. The note fluttered like a dying bird. My sister laughed under her breath. My mom said, "Get out." She pointed at the door. "Get out right now." My dad didn't stop her. He didn't say my name. He didn't do anything. I bent down and picked up my grandpa's note. My hands were shaking so badly I almost ripped it. I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket. Then I grabbed my suitcase handle. It felt heavier than it should have, like it was filled with my entire childhood. I walked down the hallway. My mom followed behind me, still yelling. She said, "You're a snake." She said, "We fed you." She said, "You're biting the hand that raised you." I turned at the door. My voice came out low and flat. I said, "You didn't raise me. You used me." The porch light buzzed above me. I stepped outside, and the door slammed so hard the glass rattled. I stood there for a second, just breathing. The air tasted like metal. My heart was banging against my ribs like it wanted out. Then I dragged my suitcase down the steps and walked away. My mom thought kicking me out would break me. She thought hunger and fear would shrink me back into that quiet kid. The kid who apologized just to eat. But I wasn't that kid anymore. The lawyer gave them 30 days to respond. They ignored it, like they ignored everything that didn't serve them. My sister called me the same night, screaming. She said, "You're ruining the family." She said, "You don't even have money to sue us." She said, "You're going to lose, and then you'll come crawling back." I didn't argue. I just listened. I let her waste her breath. Then I hung up. When the deadline passed, the lawyer filed. Court wasn't dramatic like TV. It was slow, boring, and brutal in a quiet way. Paperwork, hearings, people in suits talking about my future like it was a spreadsheet. My parents showed up acting wounded. My mom wore this sad face like a costume. My sister sat behind them holding her toddler, pretending she was a struggling saint. And then my dad tried a new trick. He told the judge he didn't have the money. He showed bank statements. He talked about debt. He talked about hard times. He tried to make himself look like a victim of circumstances. The judge didn't care. The judge cared about intent. The court ruled that the $75,000 was mine. Not negotiable, not optional. But my dad couldn't pay it all at once. So the judge ordered something else. My dad would cover my tuition, housing, and basic living expenses until the amount hit $75,000. After that, I'd be on my own. I didn't love it because it meant I was still tied to him, still dependent, still at risk of him playing games. But I took it because it was my only way forward. Walking out of that courthouse, my mom hissed at me under her breath. She said, "I hope you're happy." I looked at her. I remembered every empty plate, every hand-me-down, every time she called me ungrateful for wanting basic love. And I said, "I'm finally going to be." College started that fall. Moving into my dorm felt like stepping into a new world. Nobody knew my family drama. Nobody cared that my sister was the golden child. Nobody expected me to shrink. I worked part-time on campus. I tutored math for extra cash. I bought ramen in bulk like it was a luxury. And every time I sat in a classroom, I felt my grandpa behind me, like he'd shoved open a door and dared me to run through it. My dad sent the money like clockwork. Not because he suddenly cared, because the court cared. He started texting me sometimes, short, awkward messages. "How are classes? Need anything? I'm proud of you." That last one hit me weird. It felt too late, like saying sorry after you've already lit the house on fire. My mom didn't text. My sister didn't text. They just kept running their mouths to anyone who would listen. They told relatives I gave my parents high blood pressure. They told church friends I dragged family business into court. They acted like I'd committed a crime by asking for what was mine. I stopped defending myself. Let them talk. People who believe lies without facts aren't my people. Then the real karma arrived. About halfway through my first semester, I got a call from my cousin. He sounded like he was trying not to laugh. He said, "Guess what your sister actually did with that money?" I sat down on my dorm bed. My stomach tightened because part of me didn't even want to know. He said, "She didn't start a real business." He paused. "She opened a gaming lounge." He used air quotes in his voice. I said, "So, what? Like an arcade?" My cousin snorted. "No, like gambling." He lowered his voice. "Illegal gambling." Apparently, my sister had rented a small space. She filled it with machines and VIP rooms. She told my parents it was a harmless gaming zone. She told my mom it was family-friendly. She told my dad she'd pay them back soon. What she didn't tell them was that it wasn't kids playing games. It was adults losing rent money in the back room. And she didn't tell them she was dumb enough to brag about it online. One night, the cops showed up. Not a polite visit, a raid. Machines seized, cash seized, people handcuffed. My sister crying and screaming like she was the victim. My cousin said, "They shut it down completely." He laughed again. "And your parents had to use their savings to bail her out." I sat there in silence. The satisfaction didn't come like fireworks. It came like a slow exhale, like my body finally believed the universe saw what I'd lived through. A few days later, my dad called me. His voice sounded different. Older, smaller, like the weight of his choices had finally hit him. He said, "Your sister? She lied to us." I almost laughed. Almost. I said, "She always lies." My voice stayed calm because I wasn't going to comfort him. Not after 18 years of him watching me drown. He said, "Your mom didn't know." I said, "My mom didn't care." Then he told me the part that felt like the final twist. He said he'd kicked my sister out. At first, I didn't believe it because my sister had 9 lives in that house. She could wreck anything and still get forgiven. That was her superpower. But my dad sounded serious. He said, "I told your mom it's me or her." He swallowed. "Your mom chose me." My mom had always acted like my sister was her soulmate, her mirror, her proof she could be the kind of mom she never had. But when it came down to comfort and pride, she chose her husband. My sister tried to use her toddler as a weapon. She tried guilt. She tried tears. She tried screaming. She tried calling my dad heartless. It didn't work. Not this time. Because the cops don't care about golden children, and the judge doesn't care about favorite daughters. And suddenly my sister was just another person facing consequences. A week after that, my mom called me. I almost didn't answer. My thumb hovered over the screen like it weighed 100 pounds. But curiosity won. I said, "Hello." Her voice was soft, shaky, like she was trying on a personality. She said my name, actually said it. Not you, not her. My name. Then she said, "We need help." I didn't respond. I just listened. She started crying. She said my sister had nowhere to go. She said the baby needed stability. She said people were judging them. She said my dad was being stubborn. She said she didn't know what to do. She talked for a full minute before she finally said the real thing. She said, "Can you talk to your father?" She sniffled. "He listens to you now." That sentence hit me like a slap. He listens to you now. So that's what I was to her. A tool, a lever, a thing she could use because my voice suddenly had value. I took a breath. My heart was steady. I said no. My mom went quiet, like she didn't understand the word. I said it again. No. Then she got sharp. The real her. The one who raised me on hunger and humiliation. She said, "After everything we did for you?" I laughed. One short laugh. Dry, mean, honest. I said, "You mean after everything Grandpa did for me?" My mom snapped, "Don't bring him into this." And that was the moment I realized she still didn't get it. She still thought she owned the story. She still thought she could rewrite reality if she spoke loud enough. I said, "You stole my future." My voice stayed even. "You handed it to her like I didn't matter." I paused. "And now you want me to fix the mess she made with it?" My mom started crying again, but it sounded forced now, like she was hitting the button she always hit when she wanted control back. I didn't move. I didn't apologize. I didn't shrink. I said, "I'm not your emergency contact." Then I added, "I never was." She whispered, "So you're just going to abandon your sister?" Her voice tried to make me feel guilty. I pictured my sister smirking when my mom dumped my grandpa's note on the floor. I pictured my dad staring at the TV while my college fund disappeared. I pictured myself walking down those porch steps with a suitcase full of leftovers. I said, "She abandoned me first." Then I hung up. I blocked her number after that, not out of anger, out of peace. The next time I heard about my sister, it was through a relative. She was couch surfing. She was begging friends. She was trying to rebuild. Good. Let her rebuild with her own hands. Because I was busy building my life, finals came. I passed. I made honor roll. I got a small scholarship that felt like a medal. And one day, I walked out of a class, phone buzzing in my pocket. It was my dad. I almost ignored it, but I answered. He said, "Hey." His voice was quiet. "I wanted to tell you, I'm sorry." I leaned against the hallway wall. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just listened. He said, "I should have protected you." He said, "I should have done my job." He said, "Your grandpa, he was right." I closed my eyes. In that moment, I didn't feel triumph. I felt something calmer, something like closure. I said, "Yeah." Then I added, "He was." My dad exhaled. He said, "I'm proud of you." This time, it didn't feel like a lie. It felt like regret wearing a compliment. I said, "Thanks." And that was all I had for him. Because forgiveness isn't free, and I was done paying for other people's comfort. The funniest part? My mom still told people I was the villain. My sister still told anyone who'd listen that I ruined the family. They still acted like I was the monster for wanting what was mine. But now, when they said it, people asked questions. People remembered the court. People saw the police report. People saw the truth, and my mom couldn't scream her way out of it anymore. I kept my grandpa's note in my desk drawer. The paper was worn at the folds. The ink was faded, but the message was still sharp. Finish school. Don't let anyone talk you out of it. I did, and I will. Because if my parents taught me anything, it was this. Sometimes the only way to survive is to stop asking for love and start demanding respect.